up, virtual people? Welcome to episode 77 of VCR Redux, where we take your favorite franchises out of the analog era and bring them back to 2022. I'm your host, pop culture punk Chris Stiles, joined as always by my co-host with the most, film professor Ian Clink.
How you doing, everybody?
And we have two, hopefully soon two, radical guests on the show tonight. First up, our own tri-host from Rick Barth in the line. Oh, Mickey, you're so fine. Mickey Torres is on the show.
What's up, everyone?
And soon to be rounding out this righteous crew, coming to you all the way from the West Coast, film editor Derek Lufkin will be on the show. Oh, and he's coming in right now. Look at this.
Coming live, ladies and gentlemen.
This man knows how to make an entrance. Does he not? Wow. Okay, so we'll give it a second for Derek to come in. There he is.
There he is.
What's up, buddy?
Hey, late notice with Clink as usual.
That's
always. Yeah, way to go.
Live, so before you insult me too bad.
Well, anyway, we are here today to honor the one and only superhero from New Jersey, Tromaville's hideously deformed creature of superhuman size and strength. That's right, folks. This world needs Toxic Avenger V, Nuke Jersey, and we're here to give it to you. But before we can mop out with our talks out, we need to talk about how Toxic Avenger came into our lives and what we love about it. And of course, that includes everyone watching in the live chat as well. Did you watch Toxic Crusaders cartoon? How did you come into this franchise? Was part 2 Love at First Laserdisc? Was the OG a Vital VHS? Hit us up in the live chat and let us know the deets. So, Derek, do you remember the first time you discovered the masterpiece that is the Toxic Avenger?
I remember it very well because it was yesterday.
Oh, wow. Well, you are welcome, sir.
It's always 50-50 with these movies you guys do on here, but like I told Clink, it's like, you know, I may or may not like these movies. It's like I haven't seen it before, so I'll give it a gander. And while I was chuckling throughout the entire thing, yikes is all I have to say about this movie.
This is just, in my opinion, one of the greatest cult movies ever made, and it is designed for a lot of yikes. So Lloyd Kaufman is sitting there smiling if he ever watches this and he hears the yikes. Mickey, do you remember the first time you watched Toxic Avenger?
Toxic Avenger was a USA Up All Nighter.
Yes,
I remember watching it on that.
It's wonderful.
And then I just I loved it, but then like obviously it's USA Up All Night, so it's kind of edited and cut up a little bit. So then I had to go in the video store and go rent it, so I can watch like it uncut and everything else like that. So
now, just because it's similar, it's starting to echo my experience a little bit. Did you rent the uncut version on VHS?
Yeah, had to have. Yeah.
And where did you get it? Was it from a Blockbuster, do you think? Or was it like a mom and pop?
Palmer Video, probably. It would have to be Palmer Video.
So then it very well could have been and would have been the uncut version.
All right, what is I'll tell you got Palmer Video. I know mine. Mine is Roadshow Video in Sioux City, Iowa. I think we all have our video store. Derek, what's yours?
Growing up, there were a bunch of them.
But what makes your heart go, yes?
Probably Video Villa, because that was a place I rode my bike to, and I would rent movies, and if I liked it, I would return it and buy the used VHS that they sold, when they get rid of
those were wonderful days. Those were wonderful, wonderful days.
It took a while for that though, because I remember I remember going to try to buy, I forget what the movie was, but I wanted to buy it, and they were like, oh, that's $100 and something or something like that. I was like, get out of it. Yeah.
Well, there was an era of VHS tapes where it cost that, and the rental companies were supposed to pay that for each of these tapes because they would rent them out a million times and make it back anyways. And I think that was how royalty, because they were like, we can't trust these video stores to give us little royalties every time, they rent a tape. They're just going to lie their asses off and pocket money for themselves. So we're going to make the tapes $100 each for them, for Blockbuster. But so my video stores and neither of which are ones that I rented Toxic Avenger from, but my video stores, I hate to say a chain, but I'll give it two parts. The chain side would be West Coast Video. I have just like an extreme fondness in my heart for that. That just feels like the 80s to me.
I
Like
had that too.
Blockbuster,
I had
you know,
that too.
Blockbuster was like a 90s thing, you know, more so. I know it was around in the 80s, starting to breathe down everyone's necks, but the mom and pop store would be Top Video. It was in a little place called the Foundry in Barrington, Illinois, and it was probably there for like a year before it went out of business. And that year would be when I would discover Toxic Avenger, but that we'll get to that in a sec. I want to know how Ian discovered Toxic Avenger and like what age everyone is when they first watch it. Like how old were you, Mickey, when it was USA Up All Night? Like 10, 12?
I guess
14, maybe somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
10 to 14, we'll call it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
Derek was years old when
26.
No, I very, very vividly remember. This was obviously USA Up All Night, and there'd be some nights where they would show 2 and 3 back to back. And I could be wrong about this.
Yes, no, that's how I watched the 2 and 3.
Yeah, and
you're right.
But I remember there being like a trauma like film fest one night, and I want to say I thought
quite often.
Oh, probably with Class of Nukem High and shit.
I remember seeing Class of Nukem High in there too.
Yeah, I swear I saw Class of Nukem High. Then they had Toxic 2, and then they had Toxic 3. But it took years to watch Toxic 1. Because for some odd reason, USA only wanted to show 2 and 3 for a lot of times. So I
it'd probably be easier to clean them up for TV.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So I think 2 and 3 is how I kind of entered into the series.
Wow, that's so ass backwards.
Oh, no, because here's the thing. I love Toxic Avenger, Toxic Wasteland. That is a great film. All right.
Isn't it The Last Temptation of Toxie?
Wait, what was Toxic Wasteland? Wasn't one Toxic Wasteland?
No, I think it's just 1, part 2, 3, The Last Temptation, and 4 is Citizen Toxie.
Wait, what was 2?
Part 2, I think.
Was it just part 2?
Yeah.
Isn't Lost in Tokyo or something?
No.
I don't know. It's in Tokyo, but they're...
All right. Well, that's what I would say. Okay, so yeah, Toxic Avenger, The Last Temptation of Toxie, right? Yeah.
Right.
That is a living Looney Tune. All right. There's nothing better than this. Now, I do have a fun fact though. Derek and I went to a autograph convention once, and that's actually where I met Lloyd Kaufman. Do you remember that, Derek?
Yeah, I think it was it Illinois or was it Indiana?
I think it was Indiana. I think we went to Indiana because that was where I met Elvira. So I got to meet Lloyd Kaufman and Elvira on the same day.
Elvira was local, so that was Illinois.
Was that in Illinois? Okay, well, yeah. I swear it was on the same day, but all I remember is I met Lloyd Kaufman, and I'm like, sir, Toxic Avenger Part The Last Temptation of Toxie is the greatest film I've ever seen in my life. He goes,
Did you say I or part 3?
I'm pretty sure I did. And I'm like, you are the reason I get into filmmaking. He goes, sir, you're the reason I give autographs. Let's do this. And he, Lloyd Kaufman.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Lloyd, I have a cool Lloyd story I will get to when the time is right. Man, Lloyd is just the best fucking dude in the world, though. I guess I'm a
great fan. And their table, I will give this, and hopefully they see this because I want to praise him. The trauma table is always some of the best people at these conventions.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They are fan based.
I did a panel. I moderated a Q&A panel with Lloyd, and the whole fucking trauma team came out for the panel. And like, I don't know who was running the table while that was happening, but like, I tried to work them all in, and they were like, very cool to, gracious to just like be there. And Lloyd was so impressed. I guess I'll tell my fucking Lloyd story now. But Lloyd was so impressed that I was talking about his early days working on movies like Joe, which ended up kind of springboarding Cannon Films, and working on Rocky. As a pre-production manager, make sure the unions didn't fucking kill them for not having permits while shooting in Philly. Like seriously, Lloyd Kaufman like made a lot of sizable dents in film history even before Trauma. But he was so impressed that like I knew about that, and like who Garrett Brown was, who was the cinematographer that invented the Steadicam, which is how they got the shot of Rocky going up the steps. But he was so impressed that like I knew about this kind of stuff. Like, you know, I remember he kept saying like, wow, you really know what you're talking about. And like after the panel, he had one of the guys send over a Toxic Crusaders animation cell that he had signed and said, Uncle Toxie loves, you know, Uncle Lloyd and Toxie love Chris. Thank you for loving movies and art. Like blah blah blah. And I was like, wow, dude, this is amazing. Like he could have sold this for like, you know, a fucking chunk of change, this thing, and he just gave it to me, you know, for no reason other than to be cool and awesome and nice. But I will transition this into another great day for Troma fans, which is what today is. Legitimately, a guy who got his start working for Lloyd Kaufman, Mr. James Gunn, the creator of Tromeo and Juliet, is now running DC fucking films. That is awesome. So we at VCR Redux congratulate you, sir. That is good news for all of us. That's good news for film fans. That's good news for DC fans. Good news for comic fans.
Lloyd Kaufman has a cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
as
that's
one of the
right.
prisoners.
That's right. Lloyd Kaufman, just one of the greatest dudes ever. But and I will soon get into my first time watching Toxic Avenger. But I do want to say hi to some people in the live chat. Let's see who's in there today. Of course, we see Angie Saunders, Sean Gold. Let's see what's everyone up together. Howdy, y'all. Gold Coat says the only thing toxic about this show is Mickey. I
love you too, Sean. Love you too.
I stand corrected from Kyle. Captain Kyle says Mrs. Marvel is in Jersey. So I guess Toxic Avenger is no longer the only superhero from New Jersey, but he is the first.
But he's the only one that smells like New Jersey.
That is very, very true.
He's more of a representative of New Jersey than Miss Marvel is.
Absolute truth right there. Angie Saunders says, I've seen this one time on VHS. Again, Angie Saunders, the mash of genius, along with Mike Saunders. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's a crime that you have not seen the film in glorious widescreen on DVD or in high def on Blu-ray, because it is a beautiful sight to behold in all its gory grossness.
Who has a laser disc of Toxic Avenger? Get on the internet and prove your love.
There. Oh, fucking A.
Disc of these movies.
These kids today, they can't handle the hardcoreness of a Toxic Avenger laser disc.
I wonder if in the Troma, you know, like warehouse or whatever like that, they still have some copies of this on Laserdisc, and I would want one. I would want one.
You've seen their offices? That's a New York rundown rats that are literally in their movies because they just grabbed them from you.
They got it. They have it. They have it.
Well, I watched this on Peacock, and it was pretty good. Like, it was high definition. Like, it had gone through some sort of...
It's on Peacock?
Restoration, but not to the point where they do it frame by frame, because all the scratches and specks of dirt are still there. So that's the limit they're going to go.
Want that? You kind of like want those things to be there.
Retro
patina. Yes.
Yeah. There's nothing better than watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre on your media VHS. Yeah. If you don't have it, if you're not watching it in that version, that movie it's too clean. Like, it's absolutely too. That was a copy.
No, it's a 16 millimeter film.
But but it's like their version was a copy of a dirty copy that was on a bathroom floor in Mickey's house. They cleaned up, put on literally blew it up to 35, brought it back down to 8 millimeter, and then blew it up for VHS. Like, it is a fantastic quality of that thing because it's so poor.
And I'll tell you, and like Halloween has its charms, like in that sense, but at the same time, those are both fucking works of high art, and the more high resolution you can give it to me, the more I'm gonna fucking swallow it up and give you my dollars.
Thank God something is on Peacock besides a terrible, terrible sequel to a series that needed to stop after a certain number. You know, we got to thank them for putting Toxic Avengers instead of, you know.
Hey, I will defend Golden Palace till the end of time. That's obviously what you're talking about, right?
You're talking about that one. I was talking about things.
I know, Saved by the Bell.
And
I know.
I like Saved by the Bell.
And I do like Saved by the Bell.
Well,
any rate, getting back to Toxic Avenger and to the live chat, Gold's Code says, I just want to say this isn't a Halloween themed VCR. I was lied to. He also says Toxic Wasteland. That's what I call this show. So again, thank you so much for tuning in.
I object to your objections.
John Gold, the great
by your response.
great Miami screenwriter and Jeopardy champion, or Jeopardy contestant, I should say.
Where was Toxic Avenger at your VHS store? You know darn well it was in the horror section. It was not in the action.
It was.
That's right. It was absolutely in the horror section, and it was there one night in 1991 that changed my life. They opened up a new store in my town. It was called Blockbuster. My dad was feeling saucy. He took me and a friend there, and it was a Saturday night, and I had a friend sleeping over, and I rented 2 films that night, and they both changed my life forever. One was Maximum Overdrive with Emilio Estevez, which I guarantee you we will do on a future VCR Redux at some point. The other was the great 1984 The Toxic Avenger. And the reason I rented The Toxic Avenger was because I recognized the hero on the cover. He was the hero of my second favorite cartoon show, maybe even my favorite. I might have liked it more than Ninja Turtles at one point. And yes, it was Toxic Crusaders, the fucking kid-themed gateway drug that sucked me into Tromaville. And thank God for it.
It was very similar to TMNT. Like just the animation and everything.
And the toys, the whole point of these things is to sell toys. In that regard, it was a huge success. The toys were way more popular than the cartoon show ever was. But I loved that cartoon show.
I had the villain that had the Darth Vader mask with the 4 arms. I had that toy.
Oh, kill him off.
Kill him off.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. Such a great cartoon show. But at any rate, so I just looked at this and I go, oh my God, this is the live action version of my favorite cartoon show. Like, let's get this and Maximum Overdrive, Emilio Estevez in this truck. It looks badass. Like, and my dad wasn't like, I was 7 years old and he was like, all right, sure. Yeah. These 2 movies, no problem.
So was that the uncut version?
So I'm wondering, because I don't think it was. Blockbuster was fucking notorious for editing the shit out of movies. And I know Lloyd Kaufman hates Blockbuster, so I can only put 2 and 2 together and assume that I watched a cut up version of Toxic Avenger for the first time. But
there's something to say about, we all watch this pretty much, except for Derek. Like, we all watch this kind of in an edited version. But you know what? Like, when you're 8 years old, man, I thought I saw everything.
Oh, totally, yeah.
I thought I saw every opening, every closing, every up, down, right? I thought I saw it all. So, I mean, we whatever they did, it worked. So,
well, I don't think we had. I mean, like, we didn't have any kind of like inclination that this was not the whole movie. Like, we just thought, like, whatever. I mean, like, outside of, like, if they were cursing and they would do, like, the silent kind of thing, where it was, like, the mouth would move, but, like, you wouldn't hear anything.
There was, but how did we watch Porky's on USA? Like, I mean,
I watched that on HBO for the first time.
See, I watched it on USA, before I saw it, my grandfather had a copy of it. Like, I saw it on USA. I thought it was fine. I thought I saw the whole world. I thought there was
the best thing about
I saw a pivot in the valley till I looked over here and there was the Grand Canyon.
The best thing about Porky's 1 is the fucking VHS cover art.
Yeah.
You said this every time. Get out
every time. It's true. It's fucking true every time.
Eat a New Jersey slice of pizza and shut up. Just shut up.
It's not until the sequels that franchise finds its way. But the Toxic Avenger, on the other hand, comes out of the gate like nothing you've ever seen. And even if my Blockbuster version at 7 years old was edited, it still had some intense shit. It still had him going in the toxic waste. It still had boobs, because I very specifically remember seeing boobs like right away, and like her showing her boobs to Melvin to get him to put on the fucking pink leotard, the tutu or whatever, and just like laughing, because he's like, I love pink. Like, I just remember, like, me and my friend, shout out to Michael Emmety, wherever you are, we laughed our asses off at that fucking line. I don't know why. That was hilarious to us. But I remember watching both movies again the next day, like by myself. And like both of them, like, they still creep me out a little bit, but I was like somehow strangely drawn into them. And I think that's like, those are really the seeds of me getting into horror films right there, is Maximum Overdrive and Toxic Avenger. And then I will say, I finally watched the uncut version a few years later in like 97. I was at the Janesville Travel Plaza in Wisconsin, and on my way up to the UP, the Upper Peninsula, and they had this huge truck stop, and they sold VHS tapes there, you know, like half the size of a fucking Blockbuster of this gas station was just dedicated to VHS tapes. And they had the uncut Toxic Avenger. And I was like, uncut? What do you mean? Like, this was like a kind of like sort of dark kids movie. I just remember this being like Gremlins. Like, what is it? And I finally watched the uncut version. Blew my fucking mind. Like the head crushing scene. Like now I'm watching it with kind of somewhat more adultish eyes. You know, I'm like 13 now, 12, 13. And like, you know, oh my God, they're fucking running over this kid's head and taking pictures of it. This girl's like masturbating to pictures of a decapitated child. Like, this is fucked up. Like, holy shit.
All those trauma movies were like that. So I went down the rabbit hole of it, like eventually Toxic Avenger. And then I just started.
High, exactly. Then I did the same thing.
You know, Surf Ninjas Must Die. Like, you know, like, I just started watching.
Girls in Heat.
I just started watching everything. Tromeo and Juliet, which is still by far my favorite, you know, trauma movie ever of all time. Even though we're not talking about that, but it's
a shining gem, though, for sure. In the trauma library.
Well, and yet again, I'll also be on the side of this. Sometimes, man, I like the version I saw. I like it where it's not as trauma, because, you know, don't get me wrong, I love a puke scene from, you know, Class of Nuke 'Em High. Like, you know, I love a puke trauma moment, but it can be a lot sometimes where it's like, at least USA Up All Night kind of is like, you know, they protected me a little bit.
You know, I mean, you could.
They gave you what you can handle at the
Gilbert and Rhonda were my guardian angels to give me only what I could handle. That's right, Mickey.
I specifically remember Gilbert was the one that showed this one.
Was it?
I remember Gilbert.
Derek, was the version on Peacock? Is that like the unrated? Like, you saw it?
I'm assuming so. It was quite grotesque and out there. It was 82 minutes long, so I'm assuming it's the uncut version.
Yeah,
maybe 82 sounds a little brisk, but it's possible. It is not the longest movie ever made, that's for sure.
Is this the first trauma movie?
No, but it's certainly the movie that like made trauma what it is. You know? Trauma actually got started re-editing bombs and, like, you know, for like nothing, licensing like crap failed movies and like recutting them into like exploitative, like successful films.
Because a movie I like is The Final Countdown from 1980, where Lloyd Kaufman
bring this up.
is associate producer on that.
I remember Derek showed me this once. Like, I was like, Lloyd Kaufman?
Yeah.
What?
He's in the movie too. Yeah.
Lloyd Kaufman is a smart dude. People don't realize he, you know, went to Yale. Like, he was, you know, he grew up. He was best friends with Oliver Stone. They're like still friends to this day. You know, like it very easily could have gone the other way around. That like Lloyd Kaufman was winning Oscars and Oliver Stone was directing schlock. You know,
Trauma's Platoon.
But they did like a movie that was kind of similar to Platoon, or at least like, you know, not Platoon.
Trauma's War. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I love Redneck Zombies too. While we're just throwing in the kitchen sink here of trauma love.
There's so many good ones. So many. It just doesn't end.
Oh, you know, to your point, Ian, there's something in the chat. Scotty B says the original Halloween 1978 was still scary as hell on NBC because there wasn't much to cut out. That's true.
Yeah.
That's you know, again, compare that to a film like Toxic Avenger 4, where there's no way in hell you could do that movie on television. Like, every second, every frame is something that is just like, oh my God, there's no way they could do this.
I thought it was shown on TV, edited. Like,
what? When was this?
I forget where. For some reason, I remember watching a version of this on TV.
Of 4.
Yeah, I do remember Comedy Central showed.
It could have been something.
Oh,
I remember that, like, late.
It's starting to kind of ring a bell now that you said Comedy Central. That like sounds. Checks out.
Here's my problem. Toxic 4 is a completely different made movie. It's shot on not VHS, but shot on video. You know, whereas the first 3, it was shot on, like, you know, 16 millimeter at least. It was on, you know, it was shot with film. Like, you know, it took. Hey, look, when that devil pees in part 3, that is high quality f-stop lighting, folks. There's nothing that's going to get better lit than that. Okay, but Toxic 4, you could tell Trump was saving money. This is later on.
It's a different time, and like I was just watching it today, and honestly, like I couldn't tell if it was video or if it was 16 mil or like 8 mil or something, like because at certain moments it does have a filmic. For certain moments it does have a filmic quality to it. It doesn't have the cleanness of like the digital that we think of today from like Red and stuff like that, Black Magic. But I don't know. I appreciate it for what it is because it's supposed to look cheap. You know what I mean? It's supposed to look cheap of the time, and it does. And it's, to me, it's just this incredibly fun romp. Like, how do you make something zany enough to live up to the first film, but building out and having fun with it and doing it today? And there's just like, it's just wall to wall gold. Like, I love it's just like a celebration of schlock.
Chris, that movie was made for $12. That was,
but it's the best $12 they throw $12 at the screen and it looks like fucking $12,000.
The countless amount of cameos in that movie too.
Oh yeah, you have James Gunn, you have Corey Feldman, Lemmy, right? Thank you. Stan Lee doing the narration.
Isn't that?
And I love Stan Lee opens the fourth movie saying, the Toxic Avenger came out and then 2 rotten sequels were made. Sorry about that. This is the real sequel. Yeah. And like that to me is fact. That is canon. Like that is the God's honest truth. And I love Toxic 2 and 3.
So watching this movie yesterday, I was coming up with alternate titles that were coming to mind while I was watching it, like Toxic Masculinity, the movie, and Exquisite Acting, the movie. And the title comes out, I'm like, was that a TIE fighter sound effect that I hear? And when he puts on the tutu and he jumps out the window, and I see the stunt double with this blonde hair, yeah. that for whatever reason made me laugh the hardest.
Yeah. But those are the priceless things about these movies, that it's like it's B-movie at its finest.
It really is a celebration of bad writing, bad acting, bad cutting, bad directing. Like, I
will say this,
but it's all actually smart. These things are all good because they're supposed to be bad, and they succeed in that.
But there's something, like for instance, there's certain movies where the sequels I love more, and I'm definitely in the camp. I love part 2 and part 3 more than I like any of the, and I'm biased. But what I also like about them, it's kind of like, you can like Swamp Thing as a great Wes Craven movie, or you can be on the team Warnowski and like Return of Swamp Thing, which I love. Return of Swamp Thing. I think that's a better movie and a better.
I agree with you on Swamp Thing, but I think you're kind of comparing apples and oranges here. Like, I think it's like.
I agree with you. I think
Swamp Thing is not Wes Craven's best film by any stretch, and it's not even Swamp Thing's best film. So like.
And I'll be honest, I think Toxic Avenger is a great drive-in. Like Joe Bob Briggs reviewed Toxic Avenger at drive-in, and that was probably Mecca, right? Whereas 2 and 3 were made, well, they were made back to back. Like it was, Troma was saving money. So it was this whole like.
Yeah, maybe it's supposed to be one film. Yeah.
It almost feels like the it's striking on the VHS hot, moment, kind of thing. Like,
but I love Toxic I love his voice. His voice 2 and 3. Because that's the thing. I don't like Toxic Avenger because he doesn't talk. He literally is just but in the sequel you get that great Melvin voice. Being a superhero is really hard. I love the Melvin voice.
That's another thing that cracked me up. Like when there was a close-up on Toxie's face, it was a higher pitched voice. But when you didn't see his face, it was clearly a different guy in a booth during.
What do you mean? What am I doing here?
Yeah.
I love the bad dubbing. It's like part of the charm for sure of these movies. But I also I have to say, the reason I love 4 is because it just adds so much in. Like he's got Lardass, the sidekick. There's great villains in the Diaper Mafia. The celebration of all things Troma,
the evil
interdimensional travel, the evil Toxie, Noxious Offender. You have Kabuki Man showing up. It's like
it's Masturbator.
Oh God, yeah, dude, the cow man or man cow or whatever that mad cow.
The dolphin superhero guy.
Dolphin one, yeah, dude. There's so much fucking.
I love Derek.
gold.
I love Derek's face because Derek's like, "What is that movie?
Yeah.
Why?"
I don't know if I'm ever gonna work up the courage to watch the sequels.
Dude, you absolutely need. The whole world needs Toxic Avenger 4, and like,
I love Citizen Toxie. Like I really I remember when it was, coming out and everything. I was excited about it. I was going to a lot of conventions and stuff like that. So I was just like, oh man, Citizen Toxie, this is gonna be awesome. And I loved the movie.
I agree. I loved it. I was like, oh my God, they finally did this. Like, shit, yes.
I do
instantly.
I do like the approach that you were talking, Chris, that line, this is the official sequel. Like they definitely pulled a Halloween. Like, forget 2 and 3.
No, they didn't retcon any of those things. That's not to say that those didn't happen.
They just didn't really follow 2 and 3.
They're just like, hey, sorry that those ones stunk. Like, forget about that now. Let's just enjoy this. But you don't have to like disregard it as this never happened. It's just like, all right, now we've got something really good here.
Okay, but they had 3 amazing VHS covers.
Yeah.
And then this crappy 4th one that was Photoshop.
I'll give you that. Representation of a bad time for cover art. The dark time. The darkest of times was like the early 2000s. And seriously, this was
the straight to DVD Seagal DVD covers.
Yeah.
No, what happened in the early 2000s, see, when DVD came out, and they do this every time a new format comes out, they go back to the original artwork because you haven't seen it for a minute. It's all remastered in high def. It looks beautiful, and it's a way to sell a new format with familiar images, right? Then the format's got its roots, and they want to sell discs, and it's not about selling a format anymore. So they put new cover artwork on every old movie to trick people into thinking this might be something new I should buy. And it's the
steel
worst
box editions.
Yeah,
it's
awful.
Akbar.
The only time I like this technique is when they hire a talented artist like Joel Robinson, who does amazing work, and it looks very much in the style of the original, but gives you sort of a new angle on things. And like, but back in the early 2000s, they weren't doing that. They weren't paying artists. They were just like having someone's fucking nephew Photoshop some shit together. Like those Friday the 13th DVD covers from the early 2000s, like they started 1, 2, 3, and 4, all original, looked amazing. And then it's like 5, 6, 7, 8, shit. And those were the best posters. Those were the best of the original posters. And they
5, 6, 7, 8. It's like you're gonna do a dance routine. 5, 6, 7, 8. Shit.
Well, that's what it was. Like, everyone knows 5. You got the fucking red glow coming through the mask. 6, you got the tombstone and that creepy blue. 7, you got the mask with the half split and Lar Park Lincoln's face. And 8, you have that wonderful fucking Manhattan skyline and Jason coming over. These are like the images of my childhood, and you just shit all over them. You just might as well just piss on the fucking Bible, like the sacred text, like just wipe your ass with the fucking ancient scroll. Like,
only on the internet here at VCR can you have the comparison of biblical portions mixed with urinating on a VHS cover. I love this.
Well, remember,
I don't think that's even changed today. I think half of movie posters and home media covers suck. Like they're just here's the character.
Well, because now they're done. Now they're made entirely in a Photoshop world. And again, you're not hiring an artist. There's no more
physical media
out there.
Physical media to a lot of movie companies isn't where it's at.
I buy steel books, and every now and then those are some pretty cool alternative covers, but.
I do buy steel books and stuff like that every now and then, but the majority of the time I'm buying a steel book because it has something extra. Like whether it's like another commentary, another like a new upgraded version on the actual photography or whatever like that, or something like just the movie itself is done different.
Well, that's what that's always what I loved about Troma. I mean, Troma actually was the first VHS company that really gave me some extras.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
it was like Troma and Full Moon. Charles
Full Moon too.
Really good. Like
again, when I was
as a filmmaker, as a wannabe filmmaker, as somebody who grew up in Iowa who really didn't know how to make movies, watching those VHS specials was like, oh, that's how they do it. Oh,
shout out to Anchor Bay too. Anchor Bay definitely did a lot of cool special features.
Troma would have on their DVDs and stuff like that. They would have like a little show, like they would have like a little like extra. It was a show, and they would talk about their stuff or whatever it case to be. Lloyd would host it, but then they also had like some of their DVDs had like Easter eggs. Remember Easter eggs on DVDs? Those were the best. They would have like quizzes, like you could like literally they would ask you like about the movie, like in this scene what happened, A, B, or C or whatever.
Best Troma CD release ever, Cannibal the Musical. If any of you out there can get a DVD, get Cannibal the Musical, Troma's version of Cannibal the Musical, because one of the best audio commentaries ever. It's Trey Parker, Matt Stone, and their friends getting drunk from the first moment, and literally by minute 50, they are gone. They are completely obliterated, and they're like, "This movie is better than Star Wars." Like this is
So we are at pitch time. I do want to emphasize that for everyone in the live chat, but also Scotty B is making some points. It's also annoying that Netflix keeps changing the thumbnails of movies, he says, which I definitely agree on. They should pick one fucking image and stick to it. And I also don't like seeing films in like a 16:9 thumbnail. They should be, a 1 1/3 to 1 ratio, like standard posters, the way we used to walk past them on the movie shelves. But that's a different story for a different day. He also says that it's funny those old covers that emphasize actors who've since become big, like Jennifer Aniston and Leprechaun. When they do a new cover, that is just like, oh, Jennifer Aniston was in this. One of my favorites is the 90s VHS re-release of Once Bitten with Jim Carrey, where it's just like him and Lauren Hutton front and center, and his like girlfriend isn't even on the poster anymore. That's such a great, and then, again, I'll admit that's how I discovered Once Bitten for the first time, so it fucking worked.
I like the reissue Critters 3 where in the corner it's like, and Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's like him like looking over this corner. It's like
an Oscar-nominated actor, like, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, because I went to the video store to rent a movie. It's like, I want a movie that's a horror movie like Critters, but has the guy from Titanic. Oh, it does exist.
You're sitting there, you're holding Critters 2 and your Critters 3. One's got Leo and one doesn't. What are you going to go with?
Exactly.
Not only does Netflix change the thumbnails, but they'll show like the 8th lead on it. It's like, why is that person on the cover for this movie?
Dude, they'll fuck it up. They'll show an image from a different movie. Like they'll show you a shot from Karate Kid 3 for Karate Kid 1, or like a different movie entirely because someone's just out to lunch and like they're just busy doing stupid shit they shouldn't do. Like, what if we have 17 thumbnails for each image? Each film is more like we got a bigger chance of hooking them in. Like,
there's
you idiots. There's one chance. It's the original artwork that gives people that magical feeling. That's
I have a copy of the movie Trick or Treat, the one that came out in the 80s or whatever like that. And it had the original cover or poster was awesome and had the rock star and demon eyes and stuff like that, flames and everything with the guitar. But then like when you get it on like DVD now, it's a picture of like Gene Simmons, Ozzy Osbourne, and Skippy.
Oh man. Well, so it is time though. Like I said, we're 10 minutes late on pitching. We do have to pitch Toxic Avenger 5. It's what the people came here for. Toxic Avenger V. I apologize, Ian. And it's tough. And, since some of you guys might not have seen Toxic Avenger 4, I should basically replay the rough story of events that happened. Toxic Avenger has a sidekick named Lardass. There's a gang called the Diaper Mafia. Opens with them shooting up a school full of children with special needs who are referred to in the film only as retards and tards, 2 of which become Toxie's friends. He saves, there's a bomb there. Lardass has to eat the bomb and his superhuman stomach explodes and he dies. And Toxie goes through a dimensional portal with 2 of the surviving children and goes to Tromaville's opposite, Amortville. And they did the multiverse well before Marvel or anyone else did. And it was brilliant. And Then there's a guy there named the Noxious Offender who then gets transported to Tromaville. And basically, because it's a trauma movie, both this guy and Sergeant Kabuki Man wound up forcing themselves onto Toxie's wife. And Toxie had already impregnated his wife. So now there's these two babies inside Toxie's wife that are fighting. Like only one of them's gonna survive, they say.
Everybody in this audience, like
this is a trauma movie. This is what happens in fucking trauma films.
It should make you just want to watch the movie. Just
then in Immortville, Toxie meets the counter version of his friend Lardass, who's still alive, who's a scientist named Chester, who just so happens to know the keys to interdimensional travel. It's just fucking brilliant. It's just poetic. It's just absolute charm to the last. Sergeant Kabuki Man is struggling with his alcoholism
and letting it sit on the shelf to age.
So then at the end of the movie, Toxie, of course, gets back to Tromaville, although his sidekicks are going to stay one of his sidekicks is going to stay in Immortville and become the retarded Revenger. Again, their wordage, not mine. And then Toxie's wife delivers her kid, and then it turns out she does deliver twins. And instead of one of them looking like the Noxious Offender, like we suspected, one of them looks like Sergeant Kabuki Man. And that's kind of the button that we end on. But you have a baby Toxie and a baby Kabuki Man, both born of, and you assume Toxie's going to raise both of these children.
Does Toxie marry that blind woman?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it the same actress and all the?
No, it's like a different actress every time, every go around.
Better.
And she's also in the Toxic Crusaders, the cartoon.
Yeah.
Is she really?
Yeah, that's basically.
I don't remember that part of it. Wow.
I mean, she's basically
over. Wow.
What was her name? Her name is Elaine, right?
Sarah in the movies.
In the cartoon, I think it's Elaine. So maybe it's one of the other ones or whatever like that. But
it's just Janine from Ghostbusters.
One and done. I'm done.
and okay, so is the Peter Dinklage remake happening? Is that a thing?
It is happening. That's the other thing. They're doing a fucking reboot. Yeah, we have no idea what it's going to be like, but I assume it's made by Legendary Pictures. I know Lloyd's producing, so I hope it makes him a ton of money. But what I want is Toxic Avenger V. I want like a trauma film. I don't want like a Legendary Warner Brothers co-production. I don't want some slick Hollywood shit. I want it shot on fucking like 16 mil or like video or so, you know what I mean? I want it to have sloppy cuts and like hilarious gags and people shitting themselves and like.
So can we do the Toxic Crusaders, the movie?
I've thought about that. That was almost a go at New Line at one point in the early 90s. I talked to Lloyd about that when we did our Q&A panel. It was like this close, and then New Line got cold feet or something.
Would it have been animated? Would it have been animated?
Live action Toxic Crusaders, the movie, because like New Line knocked it out of the park with Ninja Turtles, so they're like seemingly looking to repeat that success. And my God, I want to fucking peek into the multiverse and the universe where that happened. Like that's like awesome. I'd rather see that than the Eric Stoltz Back to the Future. I'd rather see that than like the Tom Selleck Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's what I want to fucking see. That early 90s live action. Probably would have had Jim Henson Shop doing the fucking creature.
Kill 'Em Off would have been awesome.
Dude, Kill 'Em Off would have been sick. Like I could just fan cast that in my head. Like right
Kill 'Em
Off
was like a mix of Shredder and Krang,
I would have fucking cast Peter Gallagher as Kill 'Em Off, and it would have been awesome.
Use the basically the motiontronics they used in Mortal Kombat.
No, Jeff Fahey as Kill 'Em Off would have been fucking perfection.
Oh, yeah, he would have been great.
It would have been amazing.
So let's fan cast this.
97. No, it was earlier than that. Who is like 93 or something?
Oh, who's Van Damage? Give me
as Toxie.
He couldn't do Predator. He's not going to do this movie.
Yeah.
Well, he couldn't do Predator because he couldn't do kicks in that. He could do kicks in this.
We forget Street Fighter. Okay, the man does sell it for good reason.
Poor Raul Julia. That was his last movie, wasn't it?
It was.
And you know what? He knew it would be, and he did it for his kids. So I respect the hell of him. He knew what he was doing. He read that script. He's a smart man. Like he knew it was going to be a piece of shit.
His people knew what they were doing.
They did. He knew he was dying. He wanted to do a movie for his kids. Like, that's usually the death of a career anyways, Eddie Murphy, you know, who could still be making brilliant R-rated comedy. But he wants to do, I'm just saying, he did like movies for his kids for like 20 years. Like, how many kids do you have? Like, a lot. Come on now. Like, Nutty Professor was fine. Dr. Dolittle was too much.
Scene and the Nutty Professor. Don't act like you
did. They were horrible. They were horrible. All those movies were horrible.
But you laughed.
Thank you, Mickey.
No, I did not. No,
yes, you did. You liar. You sit there on a throne of lies with your scepter of deceit. You laughed when Cletus farted, and I know you did.
I did not.
Post Vampire in Brooklyn.
Your nose
is different
on YouTube. It is so long right now. I'm done.
I laughed when you farted in the theater.
So
wait, no. We gotta acknowledge this. What happened? What did you do when I farted in the theater?
No, I'm just speaking theoretically, because you said you laughed when he farted in the movie, and I'm like, no, everyone laughed when you farted in the theater.
Of course, everybody farts in the theater. It's the funniest thing ever.
Funnier than the movie.
I don't know, maybe.
Not in the case of Toxic Avenger. I truly believe that there's like,
stop bringing this.
Like there are Rocky Horror people and there are Toxic Avenger people. Like, choose your cult film brand. You know,
I will give you that.
To me, I'm Toxic Avenger people.
Same here. I hate Rocky Horror.
For me, see, the problem is I am such a fan of part 2 and part 3 that I don't want 5 to be as dirty and as gross and as offensive. But I agree with you. It is trauma. If you're gonna do a Toxic Avenger,
okay. Well, I was thinking about this. They've parodied different kinds of movies, but the one thing that they have done the least, I think, is parodying a drama. And I may have some thoughts on how to go with that because the table is set. It's literally perfectly set at the end of part 4. Toxie's gonna raise these 2 kids. One's a Kabuki man, one's baby Kabuki man, and one's baby Toxie. And first of all, that's big fucking money for Troma. People love that shit. That baby Yoda, that Grogu, that fucking Porgs, all that like cute little creature things. Like, they just can't get enough of them. You're telling me baby Toxie, little kid with the big head and the eye down here, isn't gonna just fucking win the world? It's gonna win the internet. It's gonna break Twitter.
Although he would probably look a little bit like Jason. The little kid Jason.
No, he's green. You know, Jason's not green until later, at least.
But like the mongoloid version of Jason as a young kid.
I know what you're talking.
I don't know. As long as he's, you know, lean green and on my screen, I'm there for it.
I would love a Toxic cheaper by the dozen remake with Toxie.
Oh, Toxie just run down raising all these little kids, all these little baby
kids.
Toxies.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what?
You want Troxy Day Camp? Is that what
I want that. I want that mixed with
Toxic Day Camp.
That mixed with Parenthood. If you want the drama, like you mix it with like Parenthood and like you know, basically like
Troxy holding up a broom and a little kid with one arm, and it's like Steve Martin. There's your movie.
Here's the thing.
Toxie has to teach these kids that, you know, they're different, especially in 2022. Like, you know, it's okay to be different, this and that, whatever it case to be. You know, navigating them through social media, navigating them through like this, like, you know, the diversity and all this stuff, whatever like that. Like,
oh my God, but Mickey, that's genius. It's Lloyd Kaufman going PC, not politically correct though. That's genius.
Something.
Oh, actually, that is really fucking smart.
That's genius.
And it starts pulling Tromaville into this weird thing. And also, you could add a few layers onto that right there. That Lloyd going PC but not politically correct with it, like, you know, like that would be hilarious. And then at the same time, you have this other dimension where there's Immortville, and it's like the most shitty Pottersville version of Tromaville. You thought Tromaville was bad. Immortville is worse. It makes Tromaville look like fucking Sesame Street. So you could have all those people coming over and that creating like some drama in Tromaville. Like the Tromavillians like hate the Immortvillians hate the Tromavillians, and fucking there's this beef also, drama between fucking Kabuki Man and Toxie. You know, Toxie hates Kabuki Man, and you know, Kabuki Man hates himself. You kind of Cobra Kai that shit a little bit. You know, Toxie's raising Kabuki Man's son as his own, and that kills Kabuki Man. And you know, maybe.
Oh, but see, now I want to have part of this. I want part of it to be "It's a Wonderful Life," though. I want.
Well, you could have that too.
You could have it all.
You can have it all in a trauma
I
movie, dude. You don't have to like.
I want Toxie to be like, I don't want to be here. And what's that
The
one
whole thing could happen over the course of Christmas.
Oh, I know. What was the
And you got to have Lard Ass's funeral. You got to have respect to Lard Ass. And
who's in the fourth one? Who would be the angel, the Clarence?
Well, wasn't Clarence? Didn't Clarence voice act one of the villains in the Toxic Crusaders cartoon show?
I think he did. Oh my god! That's So
yeah.
You've got Toxie sitting there like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be anymore. And you can totally save money by flashbacking to the other movies, which is but make fun of doing it that way, like, well, there's this, and all that stuff. Like
once upon a time, I didn't talk.
Okay. Well,
no, I mean, Toxie could say that, like, he's sitting there, like, oh, once upon a time, I didn't talk. He's talking to his kids, and you flash back to the first movie.
So
there are a lot of sad Hulk shots in that movie of him just kind of walking down the railroad tracks, like sad Toxie.
Emo Toxie. Well, I think if you do all this stuff, Tromaville's trying to go PC and Immortville's trying to invade. So it's just everything's blowing up in its face. Tromaville's going to hell. You have some of that Pottersville, It's a Wonderful Life thing going on.
Yeah.
And then also Troma needs superheroes. So you have Toxie trying to teach baby Toxie and baby Kabuki like how to kick ass and do what's right.
The new Toxic Crusaders.
And just shit talk Marvel and DC. Like, they all suck.
Yeah, clearly, obviously.
Have James Gunn come in and make an appearance as a payback for, all this. But I want one villain. And if there's any movie that needs Nicolas Cage, it's Toxic Avenger V.
Wow.
Nuke. You need Nick Cage as the president of Tromaville.
No, the president of the Toxic Waste Company.
Well, you can have him, but like the thing is, like I wanted to have, if you do a Toxie 5, I want to have Toxie like run for president or mayor of Tromaville or something, some political.
Oh, that's
office.
Interesting too. I like that.
You had him as citizen Toxie. Now it's like.
But that's the thing. He's the Jimmy Stewart of this whole storyline. So he's running.
Yeah, Toxie goes to Washington, though. There's your fucking.
Mr. Toxie goes to Washington. Come on.
In my opinion, most movies need Nicolas Cage.
And instead of filibustering by reading from it's literally Toxie filibusters by peeing on a bunch of, politically correct books or something, like he gets that great pee scene from Last Temptation of come on, that pee scene was epic. Am I not the only one who this?
I mean,
okay. It's coming back to me a little bit.
Hey, it's a movie. You got to have something disgusting. I'm not saying you cannot push the envelope, but can you imagine Troxy peeing?
Troxy. None of the Toxberry. Oh my god, there it is.
Whatever. The point is, can you imagine him peeing in front of Congress? That's genius right there. You can't get more trauma than that.
There is something to be said about that. That does have some appeal. I'm not gonna lie. Especially because Toxie's pee is toxic.
We're here, man. Here to write this.
You could do a little bit of that Superman 4 Quest for Peace shit, where like he's on this mission to like clean up the environment and rid it of like some sort of nuclear waste or something instead of nuclear missiles.
But only if it's the Melvin voice. I refuse nothing if it's not the original Melvin voice.
I kind of like Toxie having his Toxie voice, but
no. I want happy Melvin voice. That's what I want.
But Melvin and him also separated in part 4, but Melvin comes out of it. Yeah, and even Melvin turns evil.
I'm pulling a Halloween. We're going straight down this path of, it's 1 and 2 and then 9. That's what we're doing with
No. There's no retconning in Tromaville. Like, no.
You gotta have it all.
You gotta have it all, my friend. There's no need.
It's all canon.
There's no need to wipe the slate clean. The slate should be fucking filthy.
Especially since like you're trying to bring new people into this as well.
Yeah, you got to build the world out. You need Kabuki Man to come back. If Kabuki Man doesn't come back, you're at a deficit. You're already at a deficit because you don't have lard ass.
Look, when it goes to Troxy in the hood, all right,
Troxy.
Troxy.
It's Troma and it's Toxic.
Oh my god.
Troxy goes to the hood. All right, Sergeant Kabuki Man can be there. I'm fine with that.
I need at least one scene that's a Night of the Toxberry where like Kabuki Man and Toxie are like trying to bury the hatchet and they're like out at a bar fucking getting wasted and shit, like talking shit out and having a bro out.
And then you have somebody dressed up as Captain Planet at the bar.
Oh my god, yeah.
They start banging their heads and the head just falls off.
Well, it's interesting. Scotty B in the chat says to update it to the environmentally friendly Avenger, but that's always kind of been Toxie's kick. Like he does want to clean up the environment, you know. He is himself made of this toxic waste, so he doesn't want that to happen to anybody else.
Oh my god, I got the best scene ever. All right, you want to be politically correct about this? All right, this could be great. All right, whatever it is, the end scene, right? You get the credits rolling, but then there's like a moment right before, you know, not do a Marvel end credits, but maybe like, you know, you show who the unit production manager is and a couple other things, but then let's cut back, you know. Yeah, and it's like at the United Nations panel, right? You have Greta Thunberg is doing a speech, right? And all of a sudden, Nick Cage.
How dare you?
What?
She says, how dare you?
That's what I'm saying. How great would it be that Nicolas Cage gets up and he's yelling at her and he's insulting her. It's like, this is a and here comes Troxy, right? And he looks at him and goes, how dare you? Boom, knocks off Nick Cage's head into a vat of like New Jersey toxic waste.
I love it. But I will say, I feel like we also need to add a dark side level threat here. And I mean DC dark side, not Star Wars. Like something, and I was just thinking about it, like what could make Lloyd Kaufman start to turn towards PC or try to? And it would be this thing like, you know, DC has the anti-life equation. Why can't Troma have the anti-filth equation? And like some villain, instead of like dark side, you call him like whitewash or something. You know, it's just some guy who wants to clean up like all the filth and all the sludge and all the schlock and all the B movies. He wants to make everything Hollywood, wants to reboot Toxic Avenger as a Hollywood movie starring Peter Dinklage. And we've all got to stop him.
Genius. That's
right.
Genius.
Boom. Now we've got Toxic Avenger fucking v Nuke Jersey.
There it is.
So, wait a minute. Is Peter Dinklage supposed to be toxic?
I don't know. We're gonna have to fucking
he's
see.
Be Troxy.
I love the man. He's incredibly talented. And like I said, I hope the movie does well for everybody, especially Uncle Lloyd, who deserves it. But I still want Toxic Avenger V. And fucking A, get at us now, Lloyd. We're real cheap. We'll write.
Or I want the Toxic Crusaders movie.
Hey, we'll write that for you too, Lloyd. Whatever it is, you know where to find us.
I honestly think a Toxic Crusaders movie would not be the worst. It gives me the best.
No, it would be awesome. It would be a very cool homage to all these things, and also be something new at the same time. The problem is it's not established. Like they won't even make a fucking Gremlins movie because it's not established. So like, not enough people remember Toxic Crusaders. More people remember the Toxic Avenger at this point.
True.
And for good reason. But that just about does it for us here this week on VCR Redux. I think we've pitched fairly well for a highly and hardly unpitchable property. But because we love Uncle Lloyd and we love Troma, I think we did okay. But before we wrap it up, is there anything you guys have got going on you want to let the people at home know about? Mickey, Derek, Ian, articles, writings, films coming out, recordings, just same old.
Same old.
Just living my toxic goodness.
Well, rock out with your tox out. Anyway, you Fandom fans might want to check out tomorrow's and/or live panel, as well as Monday's Walking Dead Reactor panel with our very own Governor Captain Kyle. And of course, we want you to come back next Wednesday at 9 p.m. when we return to our regularly scheduled Reduxing with our Crybaby episode. As always, if you enjoyed this video, the best way to help is to smash that like button and leave a comment telling us what movie or TV franchise you want us to cover on a future episode of VCR Redux. And since you're already doing that, you might as well go ahead and like, subscribe, and follow Fandom Spotlight, the Hollow 9 Network, and Pop Culture Punk. Till then, back up those Betamax, rewind those Laserdiscs, and we'll see you at the movies.